Hey guys, my name is Mike and I'm with Henk. We're here at Marshall Music and Henk is the pro audio specialist at Marshall Music and we're here to talk to you about in-ear monitors. So tell us, why is everyone moving towards in-ear monitoring these days, Henk?
Well, they've actually been around for quite a while. You'll probably remember seeing videos and you always see some band members with the things going over their ears. That's in-ear monitors. So what we've noticed, basically when the pandemic hit, all of a sudden, in-ear monitors became the rage. We moved our unit sales exponentially. Why? Well, every musician was at home. He was just playing on his guitar, practicing, and some were actually streaming. You'll remember that. A lot of it was streaming. I think we even were involved with quite a bit of that.
Yeah.
So here's a guy streaming, and instead of having a traditional floor monitor or even a PA speaker blaring out much to the bemusement of their neighbors, in-ear monitors were the way to go. So we just started selling in-ear monitors left, right, and center.
It's about keeping the volume manageable in a stage setting, and that's, as you say, whether it's at home for a live stream or some recording that you're doing at home, or in the live environment. Because of course, with the in-ear monitors, the huge advantage for a performer in a loud live environment is that they're hearing a more true reflection of their vocal or their guitar or whatever.
Correct. And so you had the traditional floor monitors that guys used to use. And now think about it, a stage has X amount of band members. Everyone has their own monitor. And I've actually seen it where the guys will the guitarist will be doing his sound check and the finger.
So the volume is escalating.
Yeah. And then the next guy, the bassist next to him is like, no, he can't hear his mix. Up. Eventually, it's a cacophony of noise on stage, especially if you think about there's a back wall. The sound's reflecting. Now they've got the front of house PA. Sometimes the floor monitors actually end up drowning out the front of house PA, so it's a nightmare. In-ear monitors just make so much sense.
Yeah, you want to get away from the volume wars with your fellow performers as a player on stage, a singer, or whatever. You don't want to strain your voice. That's always the thing with the high volume. You tend to then be pushing your voice and maybe going a little bit off key or that sort of thing. When you've got in-ears in, at first it's a little bit weird. If you haven't performed with in-ears, it's a little bit strange. But when you get used to it, it's much easier to hit pitch as a vocalist. It's much easier to find the notes as a guitar player, drummer, whatever.
Yeah, and also exactly what you mentioned, very accurate. You have isolation. So instead of hearing ambient noise perhaps around and perhaps hearing your guy next to you's mix, now it's all in your ear, isolated, sound isolated. And as you mentioned, that a lot of the guys will not be used to in-ear initially. They're used to getting getting feedback from the band itself or the audience. Now suddenly they can't hear that. So initially it will be a little bit unsettling maybe, but you'll get used to it very quickly and be glad that you converted.
Absolutely. So we've told everyone how amazing they are. Do they cost a lot of money?
That's the good news. They're not as much as you think. So in-ears typically themselves will cost you a few $100, and they'll go up to depending what you need. So there's such a huge variety, which we'll get to just now. They can be a few thousand, but you don't necessarily have to have those. We've got a range here called KZ. You can read up about them, really good value for money. Or you might be a
So what do they start at?
About 400 and early 400 Rand.
Yeah, that's pretty affordable. I mean, I think that's what you pay for just regular little wired in-ears for your phone that are for movies.
Yeah, exactly.
But they're pro level, right?
Correct. Pro level, very popular, and they've made a big dent on the market. But notwithstanding, your Shure's and your Sennheisers are still really, really great products. If you're willing to pay that bit extra, you're brand conscious, and the good old trusty Shure's and Sennheisers are also the way to go.
So, I mean, we're talking about the actual thing that goes in your ear.
Correct, yeah.
The in-ears, but they're also part of an ecosystem. You've got to amplify them in some way, whether it's wired or wireless. I mean, here's a wired solution. This is what's the P1, is it?
No, this is the P2. So this
P2,
is what I'm going to explain.
I should know the name, right?
So there's a few options to go for, and perhaps you might want to relook at this video because I'm going to go through a little bit of this. There's a wired option and a wireless option. So a wired option, typically, you would have a stage box on stage. Perhaps you might not have it. There's a mixer nearby. You would run a feed from an aux channel, which the engineer, maybe you don't have an engineer, you might control it yourself, will get fed to in-ear directly, but that doesn't make sense because you can't really control it. So these little units are really nifty. The first one is called a PM1. This here would come out of something that's amplified. So you would need a headphone distribution amplifier. This is just merely something to control the volume. So bear in
That's a
mind,
little cheaper, huh?
this is the cheap one, less than R1,000. PM1, personal monitor. That's what it stands for. Just literally so you can have it on your belt and you can adjust the volume going to
And then the P2 and the P1, you are actually headphone amps.
Correct. So these now, you don't need a headphone amp. These have amps built into them. So they both take battery. This one, however, takes AC power, so you can get a generic power supply, plug it in and power it up. Also, what's nifty about this, it has a thread, so you can put it on top of a mic stand, and you don't necessarily have to have it on your belt.
And you got a belt clip, as you said,
Correct,
on all of these. It'll just go on you. So that's the wired option. Then there's also wireless, which is
Correct.
behind us.
Correct.
And those are more expensive. What do they start at?
So you might be surprised here, because there is a brand, Hybrid. It's very reasonable. We've sold hundreds of these units. We haven't had any complaints from them. So
What do they go for?
less than R4,000.
Wow.
On
that's-
special, at
That's
Marshall.
pretty good, considering wireless freedom. You can run up and down the stage to your heart's
Exactly.
content, fall
Imagine
over
this
things, whatever you like.
Cable running and you rocking away, you're going to have a problem. So wireless is really a great option.
It all depends on your performing environments as well. If you're in a church environment where, for instance, you're standing in the same place or sitting in the same place and not moving around, wired is great. If you're a keyboard player or drummer, you're probably not going to be running up and down the stage.
Correct.
Whereas maybe guitarists will move around a little bit more, vocalists
Drummer
will move around.
stationary doesn't need wireless necessarily. So that's why you could probably have a hybrid, a mixture of wired and wireless if you want to as well.
No, absolutely. And as you said, they start at about R4,000 for an entry-level hybrid system, and you go to the Shure's and the
Yeah.
Sennheisers, the really good stuff, and that just goes to wherever your imagination
way,
can take you with zeros.
On special as well, less than 15 grand for the Shure and Sennheiser PSM 300 by Shure and the XSW1 system by Sennheiser. Really affordable. You don't have to spend 30, 40,000 rand.
Absolutely. So I think we've covered pretty much anything. Is there anything else you wanted to jump in here with?
Great,
Cool.
I think that's it. And then in-ears, there's such a variety. We've shown you a few here.
Like these?
Yeah. And what happens with in-ears, Sennheiser have stuck to the traditional way of a single driver, but they really go with great drivers. And then brands like Shure and the KZs that we explained to you have multiple drivers. So depending on your ears, what you want to achieve, we've got them all here.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for listening, for watching, and bearing with us through this pretty long explanation, but I think it was helpful. I hope you guys found that helpful. Come to Marshall Music or go to marshallmusic.co.za and find out what you need in terms of your in-ear solution from the guys like Henk who really specialize in this area. Come to us, Marshall Music, Woodmead or Pretoria.
See you soon.